Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Harry Potter Wizards Unite. Today we are talking about the threat clock and percentages when you are encountering different severities on that threat clock. So your moderates, your highs, your severe and emergency. We're going to be looking at the exact odds. I say exact, pretty damn accurate odds of actually dealing with those Foundables. And this is a massive comprehensive report done by, here we go into Reddit now, so messages done by Foxfire X, and he also wanted to make sure to reference the help from the good work done by the people at Wizards Unite. So yeah, Foxfire over at Wizards Unite created a fantastic chart that estimates return rates based upon the various colored sections of the threat meter. Oh, he made a similar post in this Reddit as well. Note that these are estimates only from the limited data that they have gathered so far, but rough estimates still better than nothing, and it pasted it below. So what we have here is the threat clock that we have in the game, and in that are the individual percentages of the base rate of actually returning a Foundable. So you will have found in the early days those sector 8s, the emergency threat levels really hard, and that's why 1%, so 1 in every 100 will be a successful cast when it lands in the red. As we go further, it's 3.5%, then we get to 10% for those orange. For high threats, sector 5, we've got 11%. Oh wait, what does the 20% on the outside mean? So we've got two values, haven't we? Essentially, each breakpoint shows the return rate, and each pie section shows the amount of improvement in the return rate when you travel from one breakpoint to another breakpoint. One thing that is obvious, not all pie sections are equal. This is non-intuitive, which is probably why so many players are frustrated about the low Foundable return rates. So I just want to chip in there. I think that is because of the fact that every time you level up 5 times, your basic, ability to catch shifts. So sometimes your yellows will become green for you as you level up, and maybe that's why they didn't have it all equal. So it gave room for that, but wasn't too sensitive that you just shifted right into the greens really quickly. I imagine that the segments are bigger for red. Yeah, which makes sense. Even this helpful chart, however, is not also that intuitive, which shows why this game is so confusing when the simplest chart is non-intuitive. So I thought I'd explain a few different ways to help contextualize this information. Thank you, because I got it, but I don't fully get it. I don't get it. All threat meters can be viewed by tapping on the potion icon in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Below is the threat meter for a Mirror of Erised, one of my favorite Foundables and animations and encounters, by the way, and mine. I've overlaid return rate numbers based on Foxfire X's chart. So we have, when this person encounters the Mirror of Erised, you can see it's in the high threat, and the Masterful cast will take it into the effective max return rate. So the difference between them, one has, if you cast a fair cast, a pretty rubbish fair cast, you would have a 19% return rate, but at the very highest level of that bar, so if you're at the other end of the yellow bar, you'd be hitting a 10% return rate. And as you go into the green, the effective max return rate is 27%. So as you can see, so it's taking into account, it goes into the green, doesn't it? Yeah, so it goes into the dark green, moving it. I can't really show you. I can't. Wait. It goes about there in the green. So where that cuts off at the top, that's where it goes to on the screen, doesn't it? And it says about 25%. So if it's 25% at that point, so the difference between getting a Masterful cast and a fair is 8%. So It's a pretty good increase, not a massive increase, but even going into that green means that you have a 1 in 4 chance. So even casting a Masterful is only a 1 in 4 chance at this rate. That is why, you know, sometimes you can cast Masterful loads of times in a row. And some people that find like this game's broken. I cast 6 Masterfuls in a row and didn't catch it. The game's not broken. I just don't think you understand odds. Like, I can still flip a coin. Even though it's 50-50 that it's going to land on heads, I can still flip it and it'll land on tails again and again and again and again and again. It will very rarely do that. But my point is, that's how odds work. Every time you flip a coin, the odds still are at 50-50 for the next spin. From the start, if you're going, I'm going to spin 2 times, you're going to be at 25% chance of hitting tails? No, hitting a heads twice. 1. Yeah, pretty sure that's right. Heads, 25% chance of that happening. Yes, that's right. Just a quick maths. And yeah, so that's why you can get like 25% of 100. That basically means that if you were to cast a Masterful in this base 100 times, probability would suggest that you would get 27 of those would be captures. So that's how it works. As you can see above, the base return rate for the Mirror of Erised is 10%. My effective base return rate has been increased to about 19% because he's level 34. So every 5 wizarding levels you gain against your modifier to the base return rate, and the maximum return rate if I trace the perfect Masterful spell glyph. It's about 27%. Threat meter indicator is a direct reflection of the spell bar at the top of the screen, so after I cast the spell, the area where arrow ends up will indicate my chances of defeating the Confoundable and returning the Mirror of Erised. So comparing this against a return rate of a magical megaphone, so this is obviously an easier encounter, and the base rate starts very, very low. So you're going into almost halfway through the first threat sector, so sector 1. So already going in there with about a 50% rate, so 1 in 2 chance with a poor cast. So even if you get a fair cast, get a Masterful though, and you go into effective max return rate 100%. So on those, as you level up and your base rate increases, you're going to be able to get those guaranteed on, you know, Masterful, perfect Masterful cast. You can see how as it goes along, you know, if you've got a bad fair, 55%, a good fair, 70%. If you've got a good, 85%, rising somewhere between that if you get a great cast. And so that's why sometimes for those harder ones you can cast Masterful again and again and again, and that's why as you level up you should hopefully be able to catch them a lot easier. And also for those easier ones that you to the lower threat levels as they start, you should be able to catch them no problem with Masterfuls. And as we go down, he also explains the impact of potions. These shift your emergency clock, so basically they shift your base rate. So you can see here that it starts on the first one, we've got an effective base return rate of 10% on this emergency Dumbledore, and then you go ahead and use an Stimulo potion, and it takes that effectiveness, the base rate, to 25%. Guy uses a potent Stimulo potion, I believe there, and that returns it to a effective base rate of 40%. So that's why, you know, on emergencies you always want to be using potent Stimulo potions. One interesting thing to note there is that in the best case scenario, drinking a potent Stimulo potion and tracing a perfect Masterful spell will result in about a 50% return rate. So this is not both, sorry, this is if you just cast one. Use one potions. So it returns it to 50% return rate at Wizarding level 34. So I imagine that Dumbledore's depart rate is close to 100%. So if I don't use a door draft, best case scenario is Dumbledore will part 50% of the time. From experience and the fact that I have caught no Dumbledores, even though I've encountered about 2 or 3, yeah, he's probably going to be one of those higher depart rates. If Dawdle Draft has a similar effectiveness as Potent and Similar Potion, so 50% improvement in the odds, then drinking a Dawdle Draft and Potent and Similar Potions means that Dumbledore would depart 25% of the time. Not the best odds using these assumptions, but it helps to mitigate the surprise when he inevitably departs for many players. Yeah, so when you use that Dawdle Draft, it only increases your chances, and we don't know the exact amount by which that does increase it, but still, that's why you're going to get 25% of the time it departing. And below is a similar one on Farron's, who you can look at if you want to kind of get a bit more understanding. But the very basic premise of it is that, explained really well, but the basic premise is that whatever your base rate is, that's your odds going in against that effectiveness. And you can use this chart to work out. So maybe you can use this to kind of test this and go, okay, I'm coming up against a Dumbledore. I haven't used any potions and I'm only catching 1 out of every 10 that I encounter, which I wouldn't suggest doing that because Dawdle Draft and Potent and Similar Potions are a must. But you can also try it with the lesser common Foundables that you can get, and you'll probably likely see something that matches that. It says the rates aren't 100% accurate, as it said before. They're based on bits of data that they already have. Now it matches up with my experiences because I felt like at first when I came into the game and I was using Potent and Similar Potions, and and that makes sense when I think about it, because when I encounter things, I used to think that right from the start, I thought that your equivalent of like good, great, and excellent, not excellent, Masterful were the equivalent of good throw, great throw, excellent throw in Pokemon Go, where they do have, you know, an increase of, is it 1.25, 1.10, 1.5 times? Can't remember the exact multiplier. They increase your chances based on using those balls, but in this game, it doesn't work like that. You can get a Masterful and it might only shift that bar. So you can get a good, great, near perfect, and you can get a Masterful that's just like there on the line. And the odds between those two won't differ. Yes, with the Masterful cast, you'll get an extra XP bonus, but you're probably going to see a 1% difference in between that. Whereas if you get a bad, great, and a really good excellent, the difference between that is going to be vast. And so if you got bad great and a good Masterful, again, it'd still be a big difference. It's not that great and Masterful are the same base no matter what you deal with. And that's encountering 3,000 encounters I've had, and I've been playing on that theory that it works like that. And I'm glad somebody's checked into it and worked it out, because that's a lot of data to analyze, and it's a lot of research to do to go into potentially getting a ton of Foundables and seeing what the return rates are, them, whether you catch them, whether they flee. So great work to Foxfire X, Foxfire X and over at Wizards Unite for creating this. It's hopefully going to help some of you guys just kind of understand it and know what to aim for and what to expect when you're dealing with things. It will really kind of help in choosing when to use your similar potions as well. So choosing when if you're going to use something potent and it shifts it the same as a strong similar potion, you can see where that lands and see whether it's ever worth doing it in the future. But the closer you get to that bar, obviously there is a huge shift in that sector 1 of 40 to 100%, whereas the shifts before that aren't that great. So anything you can do to get it as far as the way down the green, the better. Okay, well that's all for this one. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. If you have, please hit the like button and hit subscribe if you want to keep up to date with future content and information. That is all from me. See you guys soon.